Hi, this is James from Drone Deer Services, and in this video what we're going to do is work on identifying bucks in the area that we've been monitoring for about a month now, see what their behavior is, find them, and then as we've done in the past, process them, determining whether they're a buck or a doe, and then in this particular case, determining whether they have antlers or not. Very successful mission. I'm trying to change my format a little bit to do a weekly video during the off season, kind of the spring. But where I found this helpful, I'll go into just a specific buck mission. So here we are, same area, Northwest Ohio, 350 feet above the ground, right at sunset, within legal shooting hours in the morning, 43 degrees. And as you can see, we find animals pretty quick. But this is our normal location. We're going to zoom in here. We're going to process these animals, use the infrared, and then go into a zoom mode. Interesting things, these deer are not in the thick stuff. They're not in the heavily wooded areas. They're out in the open. In this kind of environment here, those trees there are probably 8 feet tall at the most. They're doing a lot of eating on those trees, but you can kind of get a close-up of them here. Here's our first deer laying on the ground, comfortable, drone above it. Clearly see we have antlers here, and this deer is kind of back to the wind, kind of grooming himself. A nice start there, maybe 3 points on one side, but this deer is on its way to becoming, maybe on the bottom edge of a shooter, but we'll evaluate that as the season goes on. So this is the deer that's kind of in the center of the thermal image shot. You'll see a deer above and a deer to the left. We'll process all these animals so you kind of get a glimpse of what's going on. Open country, generally, laying out in the open. And we're going to find some others. So here's that deer in the center. As we pan to the left, and then identify an IR, and then we zoom in, kind of positioning the camera properly. We'll zoom in on this deer that's now in the center of the frame. And this deer was, if you notice, a lighter coat, feeding along there. And I am going to not make the call on whether it's a buck or a doe, but I think it's a yearling buck. I think, that's my assumption. They're kind of in this bachelor group out here in the open. And so that deer is positioned there. And then we'll process the deer towards the top of the frame, but now he's in the center. And this deer, I'm going to say, is the larger of the three, just body size, laying on the ground, more tucked in to this soft shrubbery here. And I couldn't get a good look at the antlers. I tried to maneuver the drone to get a better look, and you'll see those attempts here. But things will happen later in this video that, kind of get the deer up and give us a different look at this particular animal. So, general open area, you'll see the deer trails. You've seen these deer trails before. As we focus and process the deer, like I said, I try to get a little bit more directly above this animal. Zoom in with the camera. I mean, those green leaves look pretty cool, but this deer found this bedding, and in upcoming videos you'll see the same deer in the exact same location. I'm not sure what that dark spot is, maybe an injury. from the previous season. Not sure, but something certainly to keep an eye on. As these deer move into the ag fields, maybe an alfalfa field or a bean field, we'll get a little bit better glimpse on them, of them, upright grazing along in the ag field. But that's more to come there. So back on the deer in the center. Kind of wanted to confirm some things with this animal as I gained more light. We have the ability to, to closer inspect and zoom like we've done here. The head is turned now, and you can clearly see the start of antlers, which is pretty cool. The ears fold back behind the antlers, and this deer is well on its way to being at least outside of the antlers, outside of the ears, whether it's a 125, a 135. We'll keep our eye on it and figure this deer out. I do think the larger of the three in this shot is at the top of this group of three. So as we process here, continue to look for animals. This is kind of what I would say is a kind of a deer, a buck habitat here. This deer, the yearling we saw laid down. As I zoom in here, I don't really see the beginning, maybe some bumps there, but this deer, different than the other two, the stomach is towards the wind, and that's kind of different. So as I pan around here, three more deer come into view, walking down the well-worn trails, which we've discussed in the past, and we'll get a shot at these animals as well. And then there's a solo deer that's a little bit above, or was a little bit above center of the frame there, and we'll focus some attention there. Now, I'm going to refer to this animal as the instigator. You'll see some behavior coming up. This dude is upright. He's going to town on those branches. He is antlered, and we'll get a closer view of him. Just ripping up these leaves on his tree. This is the whole deal. I kind of seen deer at licking branches, but this is an animal just going to town on that little tree, and you wonder how trees in the woods or the wilds get destroyed. But we're gonna keep our eye on this guy because he does some things that create some activities. So here he is. He's probably 15 feet away from that well-worn trail in front of him, 2 feet in the well-worn trail behind him. And now he's going to be on a move. And we can't really pick him out here. I want to try to figure out how to do those circling up things, because if you study this long enough, you can see him. But here he goes. He's heading south, or to the left of the screen here. And just moseying along. And he's heading north. So even without thermal, you can see the trails there. So this to me is an intersection. What this deer does, is the behavior, scratching those new antlers gently. They must itch something fierce. I do have a upcoming video that shows the red-winged blackbirds on the actual new antlers. That's pretty cool. And if you watch my hotel mission, deer at the hotel, you would see the red-winged blackbirds doing something on the deer. I'm assuming eating insects. But this is kind of the layout of the what we're going to see here. This is I'll call him the instigator. He's kind of an active deer. I don't know where he's going to be in the pecking order as fall approaches, but he's certainly up and about, and maybe he's rubbing those antlers on his underside. Not really sure. Like I said, they must itch a little bit. I mean, I've seen livestock that are bothered by insects or itching. but haven't seen a deer unhappy with the antler growth. So he comes up, passes another tree. I mean, to me, this is kind of like a rub line scenario here. If we were closer to fall, he's just moseying along here, doing some scent checks from time to time, and just walked by that bush right there. He's kind of the active deer in this field area, kind of a mixture. Hits this tree here, and when I think about rub lines and why a deer stops 15 yards and then 10 yards or whatever, I'm gaining a lot of knowledge about that and kind of their behavior just from the use of the drone. Now you can see he kind of stops and he's scent checking, and you kind of get the impression what's going on here, and then he lays down. Okay, so now he's laying down. So right now there's 4 deer laying in this field that have been identified as bucks, and there was a doe yearling family group that passed through. But so now all 4 bucks are laying in the field. Here's a thermal image version of it. And you can kind of see how far he is from what I call the bigger deer that's laying underneath the shade, and then the 2 other deer that are laying down, all bucks. So here's our shaded deer. I'll call this shaded deer. Antlers are hidden, but we confirm this in a little bit that this is an actual antler deer. And bodied-wise, it's the bigger of the deer, and you can see that mark on looks like a rib cage, maybe a high rib shot that deer may have survived. So there's that in center frame. Then as we pivot to the left, the other 2 deer that were laying down when we last saw them, just checking them. We'll call this guy Sleepy, very comfortable, drone 350 feet above his head. Sleeping like a yellow Labrador retriever. So he's got some good antler growth there, and he's just snoozing away. And we'll come back to him. But, as I gain light, I gain the ability to zoom in with clear shots. But also understand I'm doing this very early in the morning and, kind of have a timeline. So the deer that's now in the center of the frame, we check in on him, laying down, completely different opposite direction. This deer is, facing in an opposite direction. So there's theories on they lay with their back to the wind. The scent comes over them, and then they smell. They can see predators coming from downwind. But I don't know if we just kind of mess that up or not. So we have deer laying in 2 different directions in this field with a constant wind. Now, as we look at this animal cruising along the field there, this is the animal I'll call the instigator, and he's just cruising along, and he's got a little bit of a marking kind of back behind the rib cage as well. Not sure what that's all about, and maybe one high on the back. And this is another benefit of the Mavic. Did the deer make it that I hit earlier in the year? Am I seeing it on trail camera? And trail cameras sit in one spot. You can put a bunch of them out. You might be able to find some animals that you might have saw during the last hunting season. But with the Mavic, you can evaluate the herd daily if you want. So here's the instigator. He's the rightmost deer, and he's coming up to the deer that's in the center of the frame now, or the uppermost deer. The 2 other deer are to the left, and we'll watch this instigator, what this guy does. We probably all know people like this. So here we go. We're working the branch again. I'm not sure. So He's walking into the wind, so I'm not sure if he's smelling any of the deer in front of him. But now we're working the branch, just like if it's a licking branch. But maybe he's just itching the antlers, the new velvet antlers. Not sure, but he's just cruising along here. Whether those are old scars, not sure. But we'll certainly keep an eye on these bucks. So he continues to the deer, which I call the bigger of the bucks, laying under the shade tree. Again, he's working on another branch. You can kind of see how far he is from the uppermost white thermal image. Now he's getting a little bit closer. He's working that branch, so he's worked 3 branches or trees on his way over. The deer that's in the shade is kind of a little bit north and east of him, getting ever so close as he works his way across the field. Now he seems like maybe he knows something's over there. So I zoomed in here, and it certainly looks like this deer knows that there's something over there on the ground. Little wag of the tail, continue moving forward. Again, his nose is in the wind. The deer in the upper left is upwind of him, so he's getting a good scent, and he's moving along here. And now you can see both deer in the frame here. If you look closely, sneaking in. Now I'm 5 feet away. I slowed this down. I'm coming up to the deer. Uh-oh. I woke up the deer from a nap. So now I got the big guy up. So the big deer stands up, kind of does some stretching. The smaller deer kind of walks away, and that's what we got going on here. That's why I call him the instigator. You can just see by body size that the instigator is much smaller than the deer he disturbed from his nap. And then the instigator goes off. The bigger deer walks here underneath the tree. I can't see him at all in the zoom mode. You'll see both deer here hitting the classic, rub line. You see the trees moving. This deer's kind of going to town on a licking branch or itching his antlers, doing something. But the larger of the two is behind him now, and you'll see as I zoom in here, there'll be some small tree movement, and you'll kind of get an idea where that deer actually is. So I don't know if they're mimicking each other, if they both have itchy antlers, but there's the tree movement. This deer's eating those leaves, and you can just barely see the antlers through there. So now we have 2 deer that are pretty close in proximity. Even thermally, you can see that the deer that I consider larger is on the right, and the smaller deer is on the left. But here's what took place. So I'm zooming in on the deer again, get a look at the antlers. Not as big as the sleepy deer that's sleeping a little bit below these two, but certainly a buck that's on his way to having some significant antlers. So these deer move along. There's the interaction is, I guess minor. They're obviously they're not gonna do anything here, I imagine. But we have a buck there in the thick stuff. We have a buck there in the open. Looks like this deer is relieving himself right there, and now he's going to walk off. I could pretty much guess that might be a future scrape site. See the relieving of himself here. You see the interaction. You'll see the 2 deer there in the center of the frame, and the distance they are apart, maybe 20 feet, 10 yards at the most, and no activity, no movement from the lower 2 deer, the lower 2 bucks. So I just wanted to, kind of cover this buck location, trying to get a better shot of the what I believe is the larger deer. Whether his antlers are growing as fast, not sure, but just body size, that's a larger animal. But he was resting peacefully, and then the instigator got him up. So I think we've all had those types of people in our lives, concentrating on something, and then they come. Now here he comes out. You can see the antler growth, not as large as the deer I call Sleepy, but this deer is standing and significantly larger than the instigator buck. But this was the activity in this field, and I just wanted to, kind of figure out what was going on here. So now we have 4 deer easily within the thermal image, and just moving across, eating. Maybe this is itching of the antlers. Not 100% sure, but if you know, go ahead and leave me a comment, and it would be I would appreciate it. But I wanted to see what happened here. So I assume that they ate, and then they rested, they bedded down, and now they're kind of back up again. And the behavior, the interaction between these animals. With the drone and the 45-minute battery life that the Mavic 3T has, I was able to, monitor this group for a significant amount of time. I tried my best to, make the video as short as possible. But here's the old bed here. So that was the bed that the deer was in. It's well worn, and then here is the actual deer. There's doing that same itching, rubbing activity, and I don't know if that's all antler based or not, but very similar to what the instigator bucks did. So what I did is monitor this deer as he kind of walked out of that cover area, and then you'll see this big tree, or relatively big tree. It's not big at all, maybe 12 feet tall, I would guess, 10 feet in diameter, and he just goes out and hangs out underneath that, and then he basically disappears. So even thermally, I don't see that deer. That's the thickness of the leaves. So there may be other bucks in this field. I just don't, if they're under a tree such as this, I'm not seeing them. Now, obviously, I could lower altitude, get a little sideways on them, and, get a zoom photo on them, but there's really no need, and I don't want to disturb these animals at all. So, so we have Sleepy, looks like he's still sleeping, is checking in with him, centering the camera. You can see the well-worn trails. Another, advantage of having a Mavic up in the air above, a particular location. You see Sleepy, this is not Sleepy. This is, we'll call him Button Buck. So Button Buck is resting pretty hard there, and that's the buck in the center of the frame there. Now I lower and put another buck in the center, and this was actually Sleepy. I guess I could edit this and correct all this, but what it does is, so I have 45 minutes of video, and then I have to edit it to make it less boring, and then I have to do the sound, the narration. And what happens is it's kind of like 3 times 45 in order to get this video to production. If I was not, working away from home and, had other things to do, I might not have the time to do this editing. And Shane Simpson talks about it, and the hunting public guys do. But a lot of time, a lot of effort's put into editing, and I hope I'm getting better each time. So I went to look for this what I called the bigger buck. So he's coming out from this tree, beneath the tree. So thermally I could pick him up a little bit, but now he's coming out in zoom mode. You can kind of see him there. You can see him thermally. He's coming out from underneath the tree. And moving towards the other two bedded bucks. So it's just kind of I don't know if it's moving from tree to tree for food, or itching the antlers or scratching the antlers because they itch. Not really sure, but I was always told that the deer really don't want to be in thick stuff